So episode 1, will I graduate in 38 days?
What are your plans to graduate?
Great question. I don't know.
That's a good place to be. What are some thoughts?
I currently have a part-time at an agency.
Okay.
So we're crossing fingers, E's, and toes that I get an offer for full-time.
Okay.
So we'll see.
We're looking for interns, by the way. What's your favorite spot in Wynwood to get food?
To get food? Pastis. Okay. I eat at Pastis probably 3 times a week.
Have you been to the, I'm blanking on the name, but it's the coffee shop with all the classic cars and the guitars on the wall?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Coolest spot.
I think it's called like Cars and Coffee or something.
Something very generic, but it's probably my favorite spot in Wynwood.
So did you guys know, we'll get back to your career path in a second. Don't think we got off of that. We're not going back. But Wynwood used to be nothing. You guys understand that, right?
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, it was abandoned warehouses, and then the Goldman family took it over and figured out a way to
It's your fault.
regulate. Oh, yeah. There we go. The other, believe it or not, there's multiple Goldmans in Miami. But they found a way. They actually redeveloped Soho in New York and kind of took some of the same strategies and redeveloped it here. And like Panther Coffee was one of the first places that took a risk there, and it became like an anchor, and then it was just proof of concept. But you used to go there and be able to park like anywhere, and now you can't park anywhere.
Now your cars get towed.
Now your cars.
Not from personal experience.
Back to you.
Ooh.
So you want to work at an agency? That's the end goal?
That's the goal for now. But doesn't mean that if a brand knocks on my door, I would say no. So it would be something super sick that I would like be able to transition over to that. But I want to do agency life for sure.
And what do you want to do at agency life?
Project management and account management.
Okay.
And also like the agency that I'm at, like my role right now is like project management and account management like mixed. So it's like I do it all. So it's so cool.
You really can't do one without the other.
True, but bigger agencies separate the roles.
Right.
So smaller, you just do all of it. So that's why I'm like excited about this.
You sound very excited. Sound ecstatic. Yeah. Valentina, what do you got?
What I want to do, mainly?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I don't know. I interned over the summer at Havas in the city. It was great.
And I say the city.
In New York City.
New York City.
Yeah.
For those of us who are not.
Oh, yeah.
City.
In Midtown. They have a downtown location. I loved it. I liked being able to work on like a bunch of different brands. But I don't know. I idolize Chloe Glenn. She is literally, I don't know, she's a former grad. She actually is an ACD, Associate Creative Director at 12 NYC, and they specialize in packaging design. I've been following her, I think, since I've been in this program. And I think that, like, in terms of, I've worked on campaigns. I find it fun. I'm literally in a class for it. I, over the summer, worked on a campaign. I think it's cool. I don't know if I'm exactly the perfect fit for it. But I like to just do a lot of things, and I like to dabble in a bunch of stuff. And I like to think that when I put my mind to something, I'm really good at it. And I think everything Chloe does is a dabble of everything that a creative does. She does packaging, but she works on the design side, but she's also in a leadership role. And I think I find myself gravitating towards a path similar to hers. It's very unconventional, and it's such a niche part of the creative market. So I'm hoping to be Chloe Glenn, honestly, literally as weird as
Have you met Chloe?
Yes. When we've been in contact, and she's great. So
if you send her a soundbite or a video, of you saying,
she knows she's married. I tell her, she knows. Literally, she was my freshly linked mentor for Orange Umbrella.
Okay.
So I actually met her. I was planning on transferring out of UM. I was really miserable here.
Why?
And I just felt like I didn't fit in, and I just came from a hometown where I felt like I fit in, and you come here and you realize you're actually just a really small fish in the sea. So it took a lot of time.
Where are you from?
Long Island, New York.
Where in Long Island?
Franklin Square.
Okay. My wife's from Smithtown.
Oh, nice. Not too far. So I just felt like when I came here, I had a lot of expectations of who people would be, what they would be, what my college experience would look like. It was everything opposite of that, and it took me a long time to adjust. And actually, I met Chloe Glenn because for a graphic design class, it was not mandatory, but you get extra credit, 5 points in my final, if I went to a guest speaker event that Chloe Glenn happened to speak at. It was like right when I was planning on transferring, and my brother actually threatened to sign me up for Orange Umbrella.
Threatened.
Like said he would email MJ and say, my sister is weird and shy and won't send you an email, but I think she's a great fit for the program. So here's her resume.
UM too.
Nope, he went to Notre Dame.
Okay.
He did his research. I was pre-med. I'm all over the place.
Okay. You just like doing things.
Yeah, I just like doing all the things.
All the things.
All the things. And Chloe Glenn spoke, and I was just fascinated by her life. I was like, wow, she was pre-med. She had no idea what she wanted to do. She liked to touch a bunch of things and ended up landing her in creative advertising at UM. And then I got into Orange Umbrella. She was my first professionally linked mentor. I just idolize her. She's so amazing. Yeah.
Let's call her up right now.
Yeah, I literally have to send her an email telling her she's the coolest ever. Yeah.
So I think, so Zahir, let's talk about Zahir for a second, right? And don't think you're out of this. I'm going to ask you about your career path. But so Zahir and I actually, we really hit it off. I think it was a year or two ago we met. And we were at this professionally curated dinner by someone else who will eventually probably speak in the class. But one of my close friends, a guy that I idolize for a number of reasons, and he handpicked this group of friends, clients, just people that he knew about, and put us all together at this unbelievable, super organic location. It was it was a farm where everything's farm to table, and they cook the food in front of you, and you're sitting next to all these people you've never met, and for some reason it felt just like magic, right? And part of it was everyone had been drinking a little bit, but it was also just a bunch of like-minded people, and no one's talking about money, nobody's talking about business, and everyone there is very successful. And Zahir and I happen to both have 2 golden retrievers, both have young daughters, both have gotten divorced and remarried in the same year, and both have a lot of the same friends and networks and aspirations. It's just the way we view the world. And when you connect with somebody like that, it's you can't leave each other. It's almost, soulmate is the wrong word for the purpose of this, right? Clearly. But, when you feel that connection, it's all right, well, I don't, whatever you're doing, I just want to be a part of it, right? And even if it's not the thing, right, it's never about what it's about. If it's not the thing, I just want to see how you do that, right, and see what similarities or differences there are so I can continue to grow, right? And I think that, so for you and Chloe, I think that's pretty special. Yeah. Because it sounds like if she was I'm going to sell cars, you'd be all right, let's sell cars. Yeah. And that's a very special connection to make. And so I believe that mentors are very important, whether you want to call it a mentor. Mentors can be your same age or even younger. Right? But I think it's always important to have somebody that you see so you understand that these things that you've conceptualized in your head, no different than you conceptualize students in the whole atmosphere one way. You see how they really are, right? And then you realize they're human and they're attainable. That's great.
Yeah. So,
what are you doing with your life?
My life. Let's see. Similar to Angie and Val, I very much want to end up in an agency after post-grad. Just gain a lot of experience. And for me, I'm in the strategy track. So I want to go, on that path of, research and really connecting the dots between consumer behavior and, and finished design and advertisements, and really drawing that narrative of why something will work. And so as of right now, the path is figuring out where I want to end up. And that's the question at hand that I've been trying to figure out. I've been growing that network down in Miami.
Where you want to end up geographically, you mean?
Agency wise.
Okay.
That being said, as I was saying, I've been growing a really solid network, I feel, down here in Miami. And I know you're not the biggest fan of the word, but it's been paying off. And
keep going. No.
Okay.
You're talking about the networking word, right?
Yeah, the networking word.
I think networking is fantastic, right? I think when it's a task to network, right, it takes away the authenticity of what networking really is. So when people are I'm going to go network, right? It's okay, you're going to go make disingenuous relationships that you are seeing as potentially transactional, right? That's the wrong way to network, right?
Definitely.
Networking just kind of happens, right? You're networking right now. You guys are networking when you're at a party together or at a tailgate. That's networking.
Of course.
So if it's in that context, I fucking love the word.
Okay. Definitely. I mean, I also think, and we've been at the University of Miami really pushes out these events for us to go to and really encourages us to partake in these networking events where, they are a formal they're a formal event where the purpose is to just meet someone. However, these I'm going to say reviewers, because a lot of the events are portfolio reviews. These reviewers have no obligation to join. So it's almost, they join because they want to help. So going to this, what could be perceived as a task to go and network, ends up being organic in the long run. And, for example, I just went to the Miami Ad School portfolio review, and I don't have the strongest portfolio currently, but I went with the goal of meeting like-minded people of who I would want to end up like, or, kind of aspire to be, which I found to be very successful, at least this past Saturday. So I feel like even if it is going in with not necessarily a transactional mindset, but going in with the mindset that it's something I should do, doesn't mean it's not going to end up organic.
Yeah, and I think, too, at your age, it's no different than sitting in this room doing this, right? It's getting the reps in, right? And even if they don't go well, it's fine. At least you can understand and analyze and, do an autopsy on it and be like, okay, this went well, this didn't go well. Now, and then you see kind of the telltale signs or the indicators for how an interaction can end up or will end up.
Definitely. And you can also learn on the fly too. I mean, the event I went to was, it was set up in a way where you're constantly seeing different people and you're going through this rotation of reviewers. And, I can say confidently my first one was not nearly as strong as the last one, because I kind of learned about what worked and what to talk about, and what allowed me to find connections with people. And, the first one, I was very nervous for the first review. I was kind of in my own head about it, a little jittery, a little shaky, and you could hear it in my voice. But by the end, I figured out what was the strongest parts of my portfolio, what to talk about. And, also there's that aspect of, these people are seeing 20 to 50 different portfolios in one day. Put the portfolio aside for a second and just, learn who I am.
Yeah.
And that, by the end, that's what I realized worked, is I showed up, and the first person I saw, I had my computer open, my hotspot was connected, and I was walking them through the Tony's brief, because that's probably the strongest one on my portfolio. And all of a sudden, it was 5 minutes in, and, we were done, and I was at a loss of what to say, where I actually, by the end, I got to know the person. And then by the last 5 minutes, I was like, hey, we have 5 extra minutes. Why don't you take a look at the portfolio? And that kind of that learning on the fly, and, Ian always says, build a plane while flying it. It's really effective.
Yeah, that's how most things get done, right? You build the plane while it's in the air. And no different than us putting this together. I literally just walked in here with Dan. I was like, Dan, we're doing something together. Because I felt, and I'll get back to, I'm not trying to hijack this, but just to draw a parallel there, Nucleus exists right here. I love what Dan's doing. We have a relationship, and I think that a lot of the value that's provided in our class, right, which you guys pay for, is also valuable knowledge for people who are not in the class.
Yeah.
And I think just the opportunity to have the intimate conversations with some of these amazing minds, you don't get that in you don't get that in most of the classes at the University of Miami. You don't get that in most of the classes in most of the universities in the country. So, I almost feel like it's a disservice to not also provide some of those opportunities outside of the classroom to other people who may not be as fortunate to be at UM. Right?
Wait, so funny. My roommate, she was like, I went home the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Pilates class. She's like, how? And I was telling her about your class, and she asked today, she's like, can I go? And I was like, I feel like if I asked him through an email, I don't know if he would say no or yes. And she's like, it's fine. It was right when I was walking in the door. She's like, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know. I'm going to go. I have so much to do. And she was like, and then I was like, realistically though, I was like, when am I ever going to sit down with the former CEO of a company? We were talking about it. I was and experience such a thing. And I was like, okay, I have projects to do. I could stay up an extra 2 hours, something like this. She's like, wait, I want to go. She's like, I'm not even in the class.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. And that's validating. And it's nice. It's nice for me to hear that, because believe me, the reason I do this is definitely not for the money. I think I've said that. There's not a lot there. That'll go B-roll, but it's really to almost give the opportunity to you guys as if I was 21 or 22, right? Yeah. And again, I think the most valuable thing for me has always been the connections that I've made in and outside of the university setting, but specifically in Miami. And they've gone to New York, they've gone to California, they've gone to Texas, they've everywhere. But it started here. So let's talk about. All right, so let's talk about the relationship, right? So you give an example. You were at the speed networking event, right?
Where it's almost like speed dating.
It's like speed dating. It's like speed portfolio review, where it's like, hey, here's my portfolio. What's good? What's bad? Blah blah blah. But you spent the first X amount of minutes that you had in this session just getting to know each other.
By the end, so that was the key. Is I realized it wasn't working. I realized it was very inefficient with the time. And I, just for myself too, because it's a personal thing, is after 5 minutes of talking about one brief, I was done talking about it.
Yeah.
And because I started with it, I was at a loss of words of what to continue with. But by the end, I realized that's not what was most important. What was most important was just getting to know the person in front of me and them getting to know me.
And how did that, so you say by the end, you mean towards the last session?
Towards the last session. So I had 5 portfolio reviews. The first one, and I had one and then a pretty big break where I, again, was kind of in my head. I was like, this didn't go that well. I just got to figure it out. And then each one after that, the last 4, I stopped with the portfolio. I closed the computer. I didn't go in with it open. And by the end of it, when, they came in with the last 2-minute warning, because they come around and make rounds, I was like, hey, we got 2 extra minutes. You want to see my portfolio real quick? And they were just, yeah, of course, because that's what most people are there for. Actually, just kind of real quick sidestep. I want to get your opinion on this. When I was the last person I saw, he said he saw an art director right before. And it was a strategist who I saw. He said, he asked the art director, what do you see my role is in an agency as a strategist, and you're the art director? And her answer was the enemy. That was her answer to that question. And I was kind of taken back at first. Yeah, she said the enemy. I don't know if she was trying to be different, whatever. He was saying that's the complete opposite. We're supposed to be on the team, and work together towards it. But what, as a designer and on the creative side of an agency, how do you view the role as a strategist, and how is that teamwork supposed to kind of look?
I mean, aside from my copywriter being my right-hand person, I would say, like, equally, you're right there. Like I said today, me and Sabrina were sitting there just, like, trying to brainstorm for Subway, and we were like, we need an insight. Like, everything is derived from a human truth, an insight, and, like, your strategist leads with those. And, I mean, I think you're, like, a key collaborative force within our whole process. I would never say you're the enemy. I would say you're almost you're the exact opposite. I think a great campaign comes from a great strategy. I think obviously there's like the design and copywriting side of things, but none of that can work without a good insight and a good strategy. So
it's like a current campaigns class, even though we do everything ass backwards in that class.
It is.
Yeah,
that class
that's really interesting that someone said that.
It is ass backwards in that class, which is
that as strategist is like the opposite. Like I was saying today, we're literally sitting there, me and Sabrina, and I was like, wow, it would make my life a million times easier if I just had someone who was obsessed with finding an insight. Like I am, but I'm like not. Like I'm obsessed with bringing into life.
Right.
Like, and I literally said, like, we should call Charlie and see if he wants to jump on the brief. And she was like, that's so last minute. Like, we've been like working on this. And I was like, this is what he does. Like, this is not what I do. And we were literally talking about it. So that's interesting that someone's the enemy.
I thought it really took me by surprise. So I wanted to get your.
Yeah, no. That's
I think that's a stupid comment, by the way. I think everything's strategy.
Yeah.
I think absolutely everything is strategy. Even in how you execute, in why you execute, and how you ask a question, and how you decided to abandon your original strategy of presenting your portfolio to then getting to know somebody, which proved to be an effective strategy, right? It's everything strategy. So I don't know who made that comment, but I personally think it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think anything, even the creative process, there's a strategy behind why I picked this layout, this font, this X, Y, and Z to bring the campaign to life. Everything has a strategy.
And by the way, like a strategy can also be wrong, right? But at least it's a hypothesis, right? It's like, if I do this, then this will happen, and you're testing it, right? And if you can defend it, it's no different than defending a thesis in school. At least it proves that you put in the thought, right? And you have logic into why you did something, and then you can dissect it if it's incorrect or if somebody doesn't agree with it. But if you don't have a strategy, you're going nowhere. And you heard, like Zahir today, asked questions. People said that he said, how many times a week do you wash your hair? Once, twice. He didn't believe it. The guy grew his hair out.
It's crazy.
To see if it was true, to get to prove the insight and really understand it. I mean, that's strategy, right? The strategy was to get opinions that weren't yours, an insight from people that aren't you. So I think everything's strategy. I think we all have to be strategists, regardless of whether it's the title of our
Definitely.
We'll just say that person was nervous and didn't know what to say.
I think so.
Also, the key is to drive the strategy with the research that you conduct,
Right.
so that you don't take the risk of, like, the strategy could be wrong.
Right.
It's like, it's wrong, but here's the data to back it up. That's why you conduct the surveys and the focus groups and the concept testing and all that to, like, boom.
Right.
Let me fact check you.
You know, it's kind of to pivot just a little bit. I want to get your opinion on this, Jonathan, is something that Angie and I feel like we're dealing with in our campaigns class right now, is managing people who don't want to be there.
No, my God.
And it's actually something I wanted to ask the speaker about, being not just a CEO, but a founder as well, is making those hard decisions and having those hard discussions, but, managing people that don't want to be there. And I guess it's a little different with a classroom setting, because you can't do anything about it. They're going to be there no matter what. But in a professional setting, how do you have those? What have you realized in your time that, like, works for having those hard discussions?
So one of the things, I won't answer your question and then I'll answer your question, right?
Okay.
Just to give it context. So one of the biggest challenges that I had when I got into academia was learning how to manage in a classroom setting, because it's very different than managing a bunch of people who get paid to be there. Okay, you can talk to them one way. You can assume that their incentives and values are aligned with yours, just 'cause, they're paid to be there and they made a choice to be there and to stay there. Students is not the same. They're not getting paid to be there. In fact, they're paying to be there, right? And there's an expectation that they're getting something in return. And you need to be much more sensitive to that. Make sense? That being said, I think in a classroom setting, you're probably going to encounter more indifference or apathy than you would in a professional setting, to some extent, because maybe someone has to take a class that they didn't necessarily want to take, or maybe their interests are not aligned with that class because they're focused on something else. And it's really like, classes are also moments in time, right? Classes, very seldom are you working towards a larger purpose or a bigger goal, right? You're trying to maybe get a grade or pass the test or just get through the course so you can move on to the next course that you actually want to take. So the dynamics are a little bit different. In a professional setting, you can be a little bit more insensitive to it, right? I'm paying you, or the company's paying you, therefore I expect something in return, and we're going to do it. Now, that's not how you talk to somebody. That's not the approach, but just the mindset is a little bit different.
Right.
So have I dealt with people who have not wanted to be there, who have been quietly quitting or actively quitting, and you still need to get something out of them? That's probably more comparable to what you're experiencing in a classroom setting. And I think just honesty is always the most effective strategy. I think pretending that the dynamic is something different than what it is just going to cause frustration and resentment for everybody who's involved. I think calling out the elephant in the room is always incredibly important. Something that it's controversial as well, because a lot of people don't like confrontation.
Yeah, it's something I said at the very beginning of our class. It's a very hard topic for me, is confrontation and having that hard conversation.
But are you asking, like, how to go about navigating individuals who don't want to be in doing what they're doing? Like, is that what you're asking?
That was the original question. I kind of like where the question ended up, but that was kind of the original question too.
But I think it's a long-winded, verbose way of getting to an answer, though. But a strategy that I found to be effective is just calling it out. Like, listen, I'm sensing some friction, right? Or I'm sensing some indifference here. And there's probably some transference going on. Maybe it's the relationship between the two of us that's causing it. Maybe it's how you just generally feel about what we're doing. Maybe strategically or creatively, you're not aligned with what the current playbook looks like. But this is where we're heading right now, and I need you to help in getting it done. So, like, by the way, maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm totally misreading this, or maybe how I envision this whole thing going, or how the rest of the team envisions this thing going, is not the way you envision it going. Like, let's just talk about it. But either way, like, I'd love for us to productively just get through this exercise together, feeling like we both succeeded. Right. And then, like you say that, it's tough to get a negative response on the other end. And that's a very difficult kind of ice to break, right? And like
with kindness almost.
Yeah. Because usually, like, you have some transference on your side too, or some frustration with how the other person's acting, right?
Definitely.
Like, if they're just being a complete asshole, which happens sometimes, right? You have to get over being like, stop being an asshole, and be like, okay, look, let me put myself in your shoes, like, give them an opportunity. And, you know, like we said, like we used to start the OU classes, it's like, what do you have going on right now that could potentially keep you from being present? And there's usually something like that going on. I don't think, if you're getting friction from somebody else, I don't think it's because they're a bad person or they're difficult, right? It may just be that particular circumstance, and you have to understand it to productively get through it.
But also, like, they might be feeling that same friction, like, right back at you.
Yeah, probably.
So, like,
Yeah.
I always feel like,
Most likely.
yeah, and, like, I know in a
Think of
class,
few examples.
yeah, in a classroom setting, it's probably like, oh my God, he's so obsessive. Oh my God, he doesn't stop. This is his life, and whatever. I'm sure that's what other people are thinking. So I always feel like,
Or it's just great.
yeah, like, it's not that serious, and it's like, that says enough about a person, and you obviously can't change that type of behavior a person has. So, like, if for them it's just a grade, I mean, whatever the case may be, like, to them it's not that serious. To you it clearly is. That says a lot about work ethic, and, like, that speaks for itself. So I wouldn't, like, tackle that aspect of it, but I would just, like, I mean, I'm very confrontational, so just, like, head on, just, like, and I think that's, like, a really good thing to own, especially at our age and our industry, and it's just be able to say, like, hey, this is going on, like, why? And, like, I think people respond really well when it's not a targeted, like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, I've asked you to do this. It's more of, like, hey, I've been noticing that, like, this isn't getting done, and, like, as a team, and, like, kind of positioning it more as, like, a group effort. People respond really well when they feel like you're also taking responsibility, that 100%. You know you're blowing up everyone's phone, and you understand that you may care a little bit more than others.
Right.
And people respond really well to that.
I think also, though, we do have a really big cushion because we're in college and it's a class. But I will tell you from personal experience that once you get out there, there is no room for bullshit when things, like, especially in agency world, like, and it also has a lot to do with your management styles and who's, like, on top of you and, like, telling you to do stuff and whatever. Because, for example, where I'm at right now, my managers are very much like, cut the bullshit. We're going to do this. You have a deadline. The client has expectations. And, like, nobody, like, dares to, like, say anything. But we also have a great company culture. So it's, like, it's the dynamic of the team as well. So
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, like, my management style in a professional setting is in some ways very similar to how I teach, and in some ways drastically different. Like, if something needs to get done, like, like, you saw Zahir today, right? Like, when he started talking about, like, you saw it, he turned into a different animal. Like, that happens, right? That happens, and I love that. Like, to me, that's what I'm drawn to. Like, that's, like, you know, it's my spirit animal, right? That's, but no, seriously. Like, now you understand.
that's funny.
But no, but I'm drawn to that, right? And certain people are, like, really drawn to that and connect and, like, just want to be around that.
His brain moves a mile a minute.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
And he's much smarter than I am. Like, I don't know if you could tell, but he's much smarter than I am. But I'm just drawn to that energy, right? In the ability to just, like, channel and connect so many different thoughts and just target it towards a goal in, like, a relentless fashion, right? A lot of people are turned on and intimidated by that and can create a narrative that makes that the enemy, because it's difficult to be around that and to keep up with that. But I think that resiliency is developed by being around almost a stronger energy than you have.
Yeah. You know, it's making me think back to the, you know, strategist as the enemy is I feel like, and this is just me thinking through, when developing the Tony's campaign with Sarah and Catherine, was my main role in that that creative brainstorming process was poking holes in the idea and was saying why we have to pivot and why we have to go, why it's not on brief anymore. And basically in its own way, clipping wings, but in order to, succeed in a better and more efficient way that is, stays on brief. And I actually, you saying that makes me think, I wonder if that was the purpose of saying the enemy, is because it's,
You're a threat.
The strategist is a threat to creativity because it has to stay on strategy. It has to stay
Is it a threat though? Or does it, I think
You're weak and you see it that way.
Yeah, but I think it's more so just as a creative, being comfortable with people breaking down what you want to do, you have to get used to that really fast. The amount of times I'll sit with Sabrina and I'll say something and she'll be like, that literally makes no sense. And instead of me being defending that and being like, well, what do you mean? I think this could be great. It's just you're right. Move on. Just keep going. And maybe she said you're the enemy that you, if you turn around and said, well, that doesn't really make quite sense because we're trying to nail this on the head. We're trying to target Gen Z or targeting millennials. Now you just messed up her whole brainstorm. And now I think the creative process is just, it never stops. We do 90 minutes every day and we still brainstorm. And the amount of times we'll go to class with 20 ideas and they hate every single one of them. Every last one. And I'm okay, back to the drawing board. And a strategist though was the first to be that doesn't work. So maybe in that sense you are her enemy, but I think that's what makes that work good.
It kind of shows them resilience in the creative process. You need the necessary resilience for a creative process to be able to be beaten down on ideas and ideas and ideas, and then still be able to get back up and say, here's another one.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely not easy, but it is the name of the game. My first class, I'll never forget, we had to come to class with 100 ideas of it was the stupidest thing. It was 100 ideas. And I literally sat there and I was I can't think of 100. And you would realize how fast your first 30 are the same as the person next to you. And that's why it's the whole process. But if you don't have that mentality of okay, I just pitched 20 ideas, they all suck, I got to bring 30 more. It's not meant for you. I've sat with my mentor and he'll be nope, back to the drawing board. I'm okay, back to the drawing board. That's it.
Drawing board.
Yeah.
And you gotta be wired different to accept that, right? Because that also weeds people out really quick.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're just yeah, okay, whatever, emotionless, right? Okay, no problem. Back to the drawing board. Some people.
It hurts a little bit, but I'm okay. But still, I would rather be beaten down than give in to idea number 19 and then it goes nowhere. The whole point is to make a difference, to win an award as an undergrad, or to be recognized by somebody. And if my 19th idea is so bad that no one's going to look at it, then I'm wasting my own time. So you just saved me a lot of time.
Right. So we're talking about class, but this is also transferable skill sets, right? I'll tell you, we're also talking about creativity, but I think more generally, right? And we're not talking about an ad agency, right? We're talking about general skill sets and experiences that are applicable to anything, right? So something completely unrelated but very related at the same time, okay? When you go, the goal of anything is to get it done. Whatever it is to get it done. And getting it done means getting it done effectively and providing value to whoever you're getting it done for, okay?
Yeah.
Whether it's delivering a message and creating action, right? If you miss on that and you go through all this work and at the end of the day you don't stick the landing,
that's no point.
There was no point. You wasted all of your time.
And I mean, I tell this to Angie all the time for our classes. It takes the same amount of time to do something the right way as it does to do it the wrong way and have to fix it.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. And that's definitely something that, I feel like we've come by. Even in our class, that first presentation we did was garbage. It was fucking shit. But I came back. It was so bad. And I came back the next time. I came back, that night. Our group put in a few more, like 3 more hours into it that we didn't need to do if we just did the first time.
Yeah.
And came back.
Yeah. 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
If you guys,
5 more minutes.
There's no hard stop. If you guys want to keep going, keep going.
No, we had a nice, wonderful conversation that we reviewed up.
I'm sure you're don't send it. You're don't send it to Professor Wesley. Yeah.
He just finished, but you guys wrap it up.
Cool. Thank you.
Do 5 more minutes or so. But yeah, it takes the same amount of time as it does to do something the right way and well as it does to do it bad and have to retract.
Let me ask you a question on that. Did you think, because I think we keep it pretty lighthearted and casual in class to some extent, did you think that because of that I was going to be yeah, cool, good presentation?
No, well, in the spirit of transparency, the part of the reason why is there's a lot of external things outside of class going on that like we talk about in OU, we would start each class with what's blocking you from being present. There was a lot of things at the time blocking me from being present and doing a good job, and, along with the rest of our group. And it was no excuse because we had plenty of time to work on it, but that's what it ended up being. But then we came back and it took 3 extra hours of our group's time, but it didn't need to happen if we did it right the first time.
Sure.
But that second presentation, we said it was far better.
Way better.
Way better.
And you
Even enough for next time.
And exactly, that's the point, is we could have done it the first time. But I also think that's what's, yes, the class is lighthearted and just, very conversational based, but at least for me, I find that everyone has their own purpose for your class, and it's very individual yet, collaborative at the same time. I mean, I know for myself, I came in that class knowing that I wanted to improve my public speaking and, work on my articulation. I always thought that I was a pretty strong writer, but I always knew I was always self-conscious of my ability to speak. And that's why I keep on, I keep stressing you, like getting reps in and just going to these events and trying to just learn how to speak for yourself and speak about yourself. And, why I am probably raising my hand too much in that class, not letting other people speak. But it really is, the purpose for me was to really try and improve that skill.
I think it's crazy you say that, because I think the biggest lesson I've learned so far, the amount of people that do not know how to speak. Yeah. The amount of rambling that is done in your class, it is abysmal.
No names.
Yeah.
No names. I'm just saying, in general, it's just crazy to me.
I agree. Yeah.
That was definitely my, I feel like everyone, and maybe I'm wrong, but at least I know I came into this class with a goal that was probably very different from everyone else's. But that's the beauty of the class setup, is it allows everyone to have their own individual goal. You can still have the same class. Yeah. And you can work towards it.
Yeah. And I think that it's almost like a movie. It's certain movies, right? Like, there's certain movies that if you watch 100 times, right, you get something different out of them, or you notice something different every time. And that's, I think, the experiences that we get in the class, that's what I'm hoping to provide, right? And like at different phases in your life, if you look back at it, you pick up on certain things like, man, I was exposed to that at this point in time, but I hadn't been exposed to it again to recognize that's what this was. And so for me, there's probably, I have to give a speech on Saturday. I'm getting inducted in my high school Hall of Fame, okay? Which to me is...
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you, but...
Oh, never mind.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you. But the reason I bring it up, so I'm actually writing the speech for it right now. And my dad's like, we should go celebrate, and I have a complicated family history, right? But it's like, we should celebrate. I'm like, I'm not celebrating something that happened 20 years ago. Like, that's dumb. That's like being the guy who shows up to the high school reunion wearing his high school Letterman jacket, right? Like, that's not it. But then I started thinking to myself, like, okay, I have to give a speech. This thing's stupid. Like, this high school doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Like, I've outgrown it. Like, whatever. I left my hometown. And then that's the easy, narcissistic way of looking at it, 100%. And then you have to realize, like, at the end of the day, I'm no different than the thousands of people who have gone through this school, and for some reason they're looking to recognize my accomplishments that are being memorialized for this short period of time. In a 4-year period, which for me was a 2-year period, they're recognizing these things literally in stone in a high school that will probably be around for another 100 years. And then I was like, what's the significance of that? Like, why would you now 20 years later bring me back to say, hey, good job, right? Pat you on the back for something you did back then. And then the story that I told myself is, you know what? Like, it's almost like you get to go back in time, right? And the lesson that could be learned from someone who's listening and being exposed to me now at 37 as opposed to 17 is, how did those experiences and those accomplishments that are tangible, right, in statistics, right, in photographs and in records, right, how did they manifest later in life? How did that person take those experiences? What did they do with them? What kind of a person did they become, right? Because you've got some options there. And I'll tell you, there's some speeches that I've heard and some people that I've seen at those types of things that, you're like, man, like, this guy peaked at high school, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very real scenario. But I think that there's always a lesson to be taken from hearing people talk about how they took successes or losses in a very short span of time and how that shaped the trajectory for the rest of their lives. And so that's what we're hoping to do with the class. And I think that, you've got people who are much older than you coming and talking right now, and it's impossible for you to comprehend the magnitude and the brevity of everything that they're talking about because you've really only been adults. Like, you guys went through puberty, 6 years ago? 7 years ago? It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but it's true. Like, you haven't really been able to think like an adult for a long period of time. You guys were living at home 4 years ago. Yeah. So as your lives go on and you get exposed to some of these things that are not relatable now, like, my hope is that you'll remember some of the key talking points that went right over your head at this age, right? And you can relate to it.
It's kind of like when your parents, when you were like 5, they told you like don't do something, and like now it's coming back. You're like, oh, that's why mom said that. Like, that's what this class is going to be.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, after your first class, I went home and I told my roommate, I was like, I feel like I signed up for therapy, like this class. And I was like, she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, like it's project management class. And she like asked what that was. So I explained it to her, and she's pre-med. And she was like, we're having these discussions and they feel so far from project management, but like on the deepest of levels, like I get why he's bringing them up. And I was like, and I get why you do what you do. And I think a lot of, like, yes, what you just said, like, so that we look back on it. But I also think that a lot of individuals, like, our age aren't exposed to these types of people that are successful or have these, like-minded traits. And I think that's what you try to do in your class settings, which is, like, really appreciated. My brother always told me, like, who you want to be, you have to surround yourself with those type of people. And, like, you're kind of, like, not a direct reflection, but a reflection of who you surround yourself with. You put yourself in a room with the CEO, you're going to start to think like one. And I think that's really, really important to do. And I think, like, for a lot of kids, like, I know half these kids wouldn't come to these things, and just because it's a class, but I think that, like, you're like, oh my God, I'm in the room with the CEO, I can ask questions, and, like, maybe I'll take something. And I think that's really important. And I think a lot of kids stick with the same people, and they're going in two different paths, but they're stuck because they're sticking with those same kids. And I think putting yourself in situations to be next to a CEO or be next to, like, someone like Chloe, like, in those situations, like, you're getting a step closer to where you want to be, and I think that's really important.
This is a free teaser for your class next semester, by the way.
It's turning into that. Thank God.
That being said, free teaser into a class. I know I have to head out in 1 minute.
Yeah, I got to jump too.
But I want to ask one more question for each of you. What is a quick one-sentence takeaway from Creative Act, Rick Rubin? What is your biggest...
From Creative Act?
The Creative Act from Rick Rubin. What is your...
The quiz last week.
And just one take.
I'll answer at the end.
Okay. I was gonna...
You start...
Well, I was going to answer it.
Why don't you answer first?
Okay. My biggest takeaway is I can be anything that I want to be, yet I'm also nothing but a humble observer to a vast universe of so much. That is my biggest takeaway.
Oh, that should have ended it. You should have gone last.
I told
that was
you.
so good.
I told you.
Oh, that was good.
I don't know.
By the way, like, an unbelievably mature take on it. That is really good.
Thank you. I actually wrote that. I think I've told you I read the book during my surgery, and
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I read the book before class. My grandmother got me the book actually during my surgery.
Oh, I didn't know it was during your surgery.
Oh yeah, so it was during my surgery. So I was sitting at home, and I read the book that actually inspired me to write. Like, I wrote my own little passage that was kind of like my own area of thought, and that was my biggest takeaway.
So I'm not that good, but I'll say just the power of, like, your mindset. If you have the right, and not just like being like willing and like, you know, what you were saying, but just like being open to anything and everything, and the power that it holds on the way that you do things. Not necessarily like an idea, like kind of like rolling it out, but like just how you go about your day by day and the impact that mindset has on relationships, professionally, you know, personally, and all that, I would say.
That's good.
Your turn.
That's a great question. I guess if I could say one thing that comes right out the top of my head, is just be untraditional, be unconventional. I think a lot of the things the book says is like, do a million things, like be a million things. And I think like it really put emphasis on the fact that like you don't know who you are, and be open to figuring that out, and be open to falling on your face. And and just don't be traditional. Like, you don't need to do A, B, and C to get to D. Maybe you're at A, then Z, and then now you're back to F. And I think that was something that I found really important. I think it resonated with me because I'm a creative. I think it, like, really resonates. I think we follow such a traditional thing to get something done, and I think just, like, being absurd.
It's great.
Yeah.
Quick.
Your answer was definitely
Real quick,
great.
before you end us off, I just want to, what you said reminded me of this quote from, it's David Ogilvy. He said,
Did you just search that up?
no, I have it on my portfolio, actually.
Wait, you have quotes in your portfolio?
Yeah.
Wait, that's so cool.
He said, talent, I believe, is most likely to be found among nonconformists, dissenters, and rebels.
Hopefully they accept me into their program.
That's good. I got to follow that. I'm literally following David Ogilvy.
Yes, you are.
My favorite quote, which I'm not going to use the quote and then close on someone else's thought, but it's belief comes before ability. I wholeheartedly believe that belief comes before ability. And
I mean, your guest speaker was definitely proof of that.
absolutely. I mean, and the other thing too, just to touch on some other things you guys spoke about, is when you're around people, like a group of people who think like that, you start thinking like that, and it becomes normal, and it becomes very normal. And then you get annoyed that other people don't think like that, so you don't spend time with other people who don't think like that. And next thing you know, you are hanging out with only elite performers. And it's not an elitist mentality. It's just that's how your brains congregate together. And that becomes the norm. And then you grow together. And it works the other way as well. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are not top performers and are lazy and are complacent, that becomes your normal. And then people who are top performers annoy you. And I think it's really important that if that's what you want to do in your life, you find a group of people who enjoy high performance, who enjoy collaboration, who enjoy authenticity, being vulnerable, and making real relationships. Because I'll tell you right now, we probably all in this room, from having this conversation, probably feel more comfortable with each other than we did at the beginning of this session, and probably feel more confident in accomplishing a task together than we would have an hour ago. And that's how it's done. And you have to just take step by step, like ways of just breaking through and hitting the next level of engagement in connection with people to develop that trust, which then propels creativity. We can come up with 100 stupid ideas right now, and we'd feel safe doing it because we've kind of broken through those different layers of rapport in a conversation like this. And I can tell you, a conversation like this on camera, being recorded, most people are not comfortable having.
Will we get the video of this?
Yeah, of course.
I want that clip of me saying that quote.
So, no, this is my IP right now. This is all for the class. We're almost done, I promise. I have to answer a question. So for me, belief comes before ability, which gives me the confidence. When you hear of enough successful people taking that mentality and doing things, it gives you the confidence to just start and to not overthink things. It's what I've told you. It's it's what I preach. Just start, and you'll learn more and know more and be further ahead, having screwed it up 10 times than you would have been if you just overthought it and talked yourself out of starting. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah.